want to get going. We have a very ambitious agenda ahead of us. First off, let me thank each and every one of you for taking time out to be part of this, the second session of the fourth PISLM Task Force. We especially want to thank our long-standing member of the task force, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, who has graciously today's session is going to be divided into two. We're going to have, first of all, a discussion on the role can PISLM play soils, the management of soils as a natural resource. Joining us, but not yet here, would be Dr. Gaius Udozzi from the University of the West Indies. And joining us on Skype would be one of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. We will refer to the segment. We'll have, or rather, we will see the task force we'll crown everything off by planning for our Conference of the Parties 13 in China. Is supposed to provide guidance for how the Caribbean is to be represented at COP13. It is our hope that when the results of these meetings go out to the other focal points, that it will energize the ministers responsible for land management to also attend. And so we would go to China with one unified voice within the Latin America and Caribbean region. Also welcome our NGOs. We have the Caribbean Youth Environment Network. We also have the Caribbean Network for Integrated Rural Development. And we have Protectors of the Environment. The NGOs have always been task force. They represent the collective views of those who do work on the ground. So on behalf of the support office, let me recognize now our head table. We have with us the Trinidad representative for the Ms. Marion. We have the national focal point for Trinidad and Tobago, Julius Smith, and our newly minted chairman. I think he's minted all around. He's a new focal point. He's a new chairman to be here, Trevor Ben. Let's welcome them. And so without further ado, I want to invite our chairman just to give a few remarks. Let me further add Amrita Singh from CARICOM. She just called, her flight was delayed, or rather cancelled, to use her words. And so she flight. So she would be here for the task force meeting. She sent her apologies. So we will not be hearing from her now. We may hear from her in the next segment. So with that said, let me invite our chairman, Trevor Ben, who will just open us with a few remarks. Trevor.
Calvin for organizing this session. As Calvin said, I am very new to, not new to UNCCD, but new to this process. At this level, I've been involved with UNCCD at a youth level some time ago in my past life. Change since I have returned, and so I am on a very steep learning curve. Let me use the opportunity to thank the FAO for their support. I know in Guyana we are also working with FAO on a very big project, major project that is about to get started. And so we're going to be looking forward in Guyana to the support and help of FAO as well in getting some work done. I think the task force meeting is extremely important. I think for a long time we've taken for granted in the Caribbean the importance of working together and people. And so we go to a lot of these international meetings as countries, and so most of the times we get lost, especially since we are linked with Latin America. The folks on that side of the globe are very boisterous, and we are very conservative. So we come on back quite often without any accomplishments. I want to encourage all of you today, opportunity here at the task force to be as candid as possible, to explore all of the options that are available to us. Calvin alluded to the COP and CRIC meeting that is taking place in China in a few weeks. And I think we need to try as best as we can to agree before going to China. The help of opportunity. In Kenya, somewhere we met after Kenya. Anyway, I had said that I would like to host the CRIC meeting of 2018 in Guyana. The government of Guyana is looking forward to host it. Counting on your support for that. We have not made any formal approaches to UNCCD, but as yet, we have made informal approaches, but nothing formal, and I was hoping that out of this meeting, this could be one of the resolutions with the support of the other colleagues here, that Guyana be given the opportunity to host that meeting in 2018. In addition, we that there is one voice in terms of the actions that we would like to see. I know there's going to be a lot of negotiations going on leading up to the ministerial meeting, and after the meeting, I would like to see us now make happy before we leave here. Like I said, a lot of changes in UNCCD. For the first time, we are having to work with an SDG, formerly the MDGs. There seem to be no relationship to the work that we did with MDGs, but now it's more solidly accounted for. And so I think there is a lot more going for us now, and a lot more recognition for the work that we have to do. Team 3 in particular, which we are looking at with the 2030 goal. And so I would urge us to make sure that we are able to achieve this in the Caribbean, but in doing so, to plan properly for that time when it does come. PISLM, as you know, is a loose body of countries working in this area. And we might want to also think about how we could make this a more not only representative body, but also a more proactive that can work on our behalf between these meetings, and to ensure that our issues remain active and both at the UNCCD and the FAO meetings. So I would urge that we look at how we could really make that a reality. Give the floor to others at the head table, and to, like Calvin, use this opportunity to welcome you to Trinidad, and I believe we will have other opportunities to talk a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The Chairman mentioned PISLM. For those of you who are not familiar with the structure of the organizational makeup of PISLM, it's governed by the ministers responsible for UNCCD. That's our high-level meeting, which we hope to have in China this year. Because of the lapses that have taken place with quoted environment. It's then managed by this board, which we call the task force, and is supported by the throughout of its constituents. So we have governments, NGOs, university, institutional bodies who make up this structure called the task force, which gives direction to the organization. Once a program within an NGO by the name of CNIRD, we now are a standalone, as of 2010, a standalone organization as per your directive. So the support office really facilitates all these organs within the PISLM to coordinate and to give direction in meeting the objectives of the UNCCD. So that's just a bit of information. Now I'd like to invite of the founding members of the PISLM. As the name implies, it really was a mechanism for partnering in the Caribbean, creating a platform for working in SLM. We have the distinct privilege of being the only partnership initiative in the world that focuses on SLM only. We have been asked to share our model to the Pacific Islands, and they have set up something similar within SHREP. So FAO, the UNEP, and the Global Mechanism were the three founding international institutions that spearheaded the move or the drive towards establishing this Caribbean body. We were very sad to see one of the founding members be elevated to a higher position, yes, in Barbados, but to have money here was to give us a few words on behalf of the FAO, and we are happy in us. Welcome.
To all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of my organization, I'd like to actually say very much thank you for the support that you have also given to the FAO. And on very presenting the Food and Agriculture Organization this morning. Good morning to Mr. Ben, the chairman of the task force, also to my colleague from the Ministry of Planning and Development, and also to our participants who travel from the region. The only region with a sustainable land management available to us. So beneath of times it contributes to the maintenance of both the national and it supports the forests, grasslands, jungles, amazing vegetative biodiversity. Fuel, animal feed, medicine, and raw materials for clothing, household goods, and other essentials. Soil supports below and above land for animals. And Biden provides both the foundation and basic material soils and how we use them play an important role to solve the problems or address the problems of climate change. Intensity and frequency of natural disasters proportion to small island developing states. Land degradation, we are all aware still region as we have events such as hurricanes and droughts. These events result in soil erosion, nutrient depletion, in soil fertility and agricultural productivity, and is considered a major impediment to the growth of agricultural production. Disasters and food insecurity and to help to prevent protect the livelihoods of us all from shocks, to make food systems more resilient of absorbing the impact of and recovering from disruptive events. It is therefore very important that active land be guarded against. Globally, soils continue to be under pressure from increases in population, higher demands for food, and competing land uses. Approximately 33% of our global soils are degraded, and policymakers and practitioners around the world are exploring opportunities to embrace sustainable development. In 2015, the international soils provide for healthy years. During the partners undertook activities aimed at raising awareness of the importance of sustainable soil management as a basis for food systems, fuel, fiber, and production. Also for essential ecosystem services and better adaptation to climate change. Starting with this International Year of Soils, was revised and approved by the FAO conference. Of the status of the world's soils resources report was released. In addition, soils are well reflected in the approved Sustainable Development Goals 4 out of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals endorsed by the international community directly address soils and their role in enabling the Earth's human well-being. The importance of soils seem clear. In the past, they have not received the attention due to management, an infinite resource. This is not so. For us today, this week, capacity development is going to be key for all of us here. Capacity development is at the heart of the efforts to combat land degradation. It focuses on strengthening technical capacities in sustainable land management, functions needed to sustain change and information sharing, creating partnerships, advocacy, and resource mobilization. This workshop event is a key capacity development opportunity. Find your exchanges very useful. Of a regional response to land degradation and mission for sustainability.
Thank you very much. And I think the stage has been well set for our morning's segment. Coming into the room, the ASU he's our soil expert from the University of the West Indies, and he's also a key member of the Global Soil Partnership. That's a regional entity that focuses on soil management. As was pointed out, and look and see how we can interlock soil management. UNCCD National Focal Point, Smith. He is going to represent the Ministry of Planning. Julius is the outgoing chairman of the task force. On behalf of the support office, we really want to thank Land and Tobago for supporting the task force. 6 years they have been contributing towards the running of the office, and it has the seed that was able to bring us to this point. And so we want to welcome Julius, who's going to speak on behalf of the ministry and government of Trinidad today. Julius.
Hey, thank you, Calvin. For those of you who know me again, my name is Julius Smith, and I am representing the national focal point for the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, which is the I just like to start my remarks. Other people have attended. I know that could have been challenging, especially with the inclement weather that I'm experiencing in the region. I'd like to acknowledge the representative from the FAO, Ms. Allen, our technical facilitators, such as yourself, Dr. Unoxi, the NGOs and CBOs who have attended. And I'd also like to, last but not least, I'd also like to recognize our new chair, Mr. Trevor Ben from Guyana. The great things about speaking last at this head table is that people say all of the important stuff, and I don't have to go over it again. So I can just go straight into there's a few technical details. As I like to know, as the sub-region, coming out of our last meeting in Nairobi and last call, what has happened is that under the UNCCD, we have adopted this new paradigm called land degradation neutrality, and stemming from that now is the target setting program. Now, with all of these environmental or multilateral agreements, the trend has been to set targets, and the UNCCD has been the last of those conventions to do this, but it's sought to do this through this land degradation neutrality target setting program. You know? And the climate change is the the national development, and under this is under land degradation, it's land degradation neutrality. Just to assemble a group to examine how we would attempt to go about setting a program, not a program, sorry, the target. And amongst the participants were CSOs such as protectors of the environment, a representative which is here today. The University of the West Indies, namely the Geoinformatics Department, Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, our Environmental Management Authority, and the Quarry Owners Association. And the next step is that we were going to form a working group. This working group actually be the technical body that would actually decide upon how we would go about setting us this land degradation neutrality target. You know, I just realized that some people in the room might not actually understand or know what land degradation neutrality is, so I'll just briefly give you a definition. The concept of land degradation neutrality states that if you utilize land or develop land and that land loses productivity because you've built something on it, or you've reduced the productivity of the soil by whatever activity, that this concept asks or requests that you rehabilitate degraded land of a similar acreage or an increased acreage to a comparable level of productivity. No net loss of the land. It's a concept, but very complex in practice. So as you imagine, in order to implement this program, there must be a way of monitoring it. And one of the secretary, and it's probably monitored. One is the third is sorry, thank you, soil carbon content. I would never remember. So so central to that would be that you would have to have a sufficient level of baseline data mechanism from which to monitor the progress of your efforts to rehabilitate degraded lands along those three parameters. Which this is trying to be accomplished, this by which we are attempting to accomplish this is through, or to monitor this is via remote sensing and geographic information systems. In a very aggressive and real way, UNCCD is attempting to catch up to the other MEAs in using a lot of high technology. In implementing this target setting program, was that, well, the first mandate was that it should happen at a national level, and again, that's a very complex issue. So, but I will do it by, in this case, the quarrying sector, and the aim was that we would try to initiate a land degradation neutrality policy or practice in the quarrying sector, and if successful, we would incorporate in other sectors, such as reclamation, housing, or reforestation expansion efforts, or watershed restoration. So in that regard, we be relying, and this is true for any SLM activity, we would definitely be have heavy reliance not just upon the government ministries and departments, but also on inputs from the private sector. So the other aspect I wanted to touch on really briefly was national action programs. And the national action programs, as we all know, is the vehicle by which we implement this convention at the country level. Right? Now, Trinidad and Tobago, we were supposed to align our NAPs. Everyone was supposed, who's party to this convention, was supposed to align their NAPs to the strategy. And as we all know, the 10-year strategies come into close in 2018. And Trinidad is in the final phase of aligning its NAP. And as you can tell, that's rather late. But in our defense, our existing NAP is quite a good NAP and has served us really well up until this point. And being late in this exercise has also turned out to be a bit of a blessing. It has allowed us in drafting our new NAP to incorporate this new land degradation neutrality concept. Finalizing on that, but underlining on that is that we should have, based on the financial constraints of the economic conditions in the current case. Now, a couple of things were apparent, and I don't know if y'all can, if we have these things in common, if y'all can identify with what I'm saying. That there is when we speak to the stakeholders, that is both within the government and in the private sector and the NGO sector, there is a paucity, there is a lack of awareness of the convention, UNCC. Sustainability pretty much takes care of the other where the bulk of pollution occurs. If we take care and sort out our environmental problems through sustainable land management solutions, biological diversity would improve or be enhanced or be maintained or be conserved, and climate change would be mitigated, and it would be much easier, or climate change resilience would increase, and it would be much easier to gain climate change resilience in the instances where we can't reverse or halt climate change. The other thing is that because we had a lot of the stakeholders, a lot of stakeholders didn't know about the NAP, and we had a pretty good NAP. We had such a good NAP, in fact, that a lot of other countries that were signatory to the convention started using it as a model. Our secretariat, the secretariat of the convention identified our NAP as being an exemplary version of what it should be. And like I said, that's a shame. And then they didn't know that we had an app, far less for how it should be used. Okay? Coming out of that as well is that the consultations allowed us now to indicate, or to not just to ventilate to the public and to all the stakeholders the value of the app and how it should be used. Absolute necessity and primacy of sustainable land management. So we're now going to be looking at the stage of that we have to submit this final draft, and we're hoping and thinking that this could be an opportunity for the government to re-endorse our commitment to the convention and promote sustainable land management. Now, the NAP, as it turns out, has become the country's de facto land management policy, which is a bit odd that we're a small island state with finite land resources and we don't have a formal policy on land. And we've attempted it. We tried it in 1992 and we tried it again in 2000, but we never got around to drafting a comprehensive policy. But luckily, I think the NAP could fill this gap. Right? Okay. I'd like to close by PISLM for their continuing efforts and recognize them as being the driving force for this UNCCD sustainable land management process in the Caribbean sub-region. I don't think we'd be enjoying the benefits of the progress that we've made. And I particularly want to commend so productive, and I look forward to the Caribbean advancing their sub-regional agenda at COP13, which is in September. I don't know why we have to go to such a remote place, but apparently the orders is supposed to be a really great example of how they're rehabilitated into a place of arable land and productivity. Orders, and lastly, I can't forget this. I want to really recognize Guyana and the intrepidness of Mr. Ben, because he stepped up in Nairobi and put Guyana forward. COP 17, so CRIC 17, and that is a huge undertaking. It shows a lot of ambition on Guyana's part and by extension the Caribbean, so we ride on their coattails. And Trinidad and Tobago support that we can, and we would stand. And I think as a reason we should stand behind Guyana in flying off. In promote, not just promote this sustainable land management, but in promoting the Caribbean's cause and presence in this convention. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And this brings to the end our very short but informative opening ceremony. I want to thank the head table for again taking the time to be with us. We are going to go into our working session. We are going to explore how you, the focal points, and the civil society, I stand corrected. Dr. Gears might correct me if I'm wrong. An updated soil database is Guyana. So Guyana is really leading. I might be wrong. They're really leading in many respects. What this means is that if we take for us to do in the work of the Caribbean up to par, as Julius pointed out, soils is one of 3 indicators that we will be looking at in the LDN process, so that you can only succeed in as far as you can demonstrate that we can manage our soil as we really look at the shot represent this segment of today's proceedings. This will be the soils segment, as opposed to this afternoon we'll be dealing with our task force meeting. So if I want to kindly invite all the delegates up to the front, where we will be choreographed, I guess, as to where to stand so that we can have a group chat.